Perfect, welcome back. And now let me take you through the local newspapers here. I have got 4 papers. Thank you. Of course, I still already have my guest in studio getting introduced shortly. But let me start with the local dailies. I have got 4 papers. Let me start with the People Daily. Governors to share 385 billion shillings. Governors to share 385 billion shillings. CS Njuguna Ndungu sends new allocations to Parliament. Amount 40 billion shillings less than what Council of Governors had asked for, and Lamu, Elgeyo Marakwet and Isiolo to get lowest amount if MPs pass revenue sharing plan. That is what's on the front page of the People Daily. Still there at the top, must sit back in hot seat as IBC tribunal resumes. Must sit back in hot seat as IBC tribunal resumes. Fireworks expected as Muchelule team starts hearing replying submissions in case against electoral commissioners. That is what's on the front page of the People Daily. Let me get you the details on that IBC hearing. Inquiry into the conduct of the Chirera folk, quote unquote, during the last general election enters home stretch starting today as the tribunal begins receiving submissions from the accused. Sources within the tribunal said that they were ready to start receiving replying submissions from the accused starting this morning. And tribunal was appointed by President William Ruto last year to investigate the conduct of former Electoral Commission Chair Juliana Chirera and 4 commissioners, Justus Nying'aya, Francis Wanderi and Irene Masit. My guest will help me to get in that shortly. Treasury allocates 385 billion shillings to devolved units next year. Treasury allocates 385 billion shillings to devolved units next year. Allocation is about 40 billion shillings less than the 425 billion shillings county governors have been agitating for. And however, Parliament will still has powers to vary the amount. But if National Assembly and Senate pass the recommendation without amendments, then the money will be disbursed starting July 1st. Remember, there have been lots and lots of meetings between the Treasury, the Executive, and the County Assembly and the county bosses on revenue share, on what they are supposed to be getting. All right. Details shortly. Let me get you to the front page of the Star newspaper. Raila's confounding political game plan. Raila's confounding political game plan. Azimio has held over 10 rallies since January and visited 7 counties. But what is puzzling is that even close allies are not sure about ODM leaders' end game. I think this is the right time to bring in my guests to get me into this discussion. Starting with you, Mheshimiwa Peter Irungu. Good morning and Happy New Year. It's still okay to say Happy New Year. The last time we met was way back last year.
Yeah.
Karibu sana to the show.
Okay, thank you very much.
Raila's confounding political game plan, 10 so far, 7 counties, nobody knows the game plan, the end game.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. First of all, may I say hi to Kenyans and greet the members who are with me. A member for North Hall. Mandera South. That's Mandera South. Thank you, Mheshimiwa. Member for Mandera South. I think Raila being a person who has been in politics for long, and after losing the 2022 elections, he needs to create his relevance in politics. And therefore, one of the areas is that I think he wants to, first of all, strengthen his strongholds. And that's why you find most of his rallies he's doing in areas that they are perceived as his strongholds. Therefore, one thing I think he's doing is that he's trying to strengthen his stronghold and continue remaining as the relevant person in the ODM, and also as they used to call it as the Azimio, to be the leader in Azimio, Because if we could have delayed a bit, Kalonzo could have started up and maybe overtaken him. Because you see, they had been having a number of agreements whereby after he loses this time, then Kalonzo will take up. And therefore, I think the wisdom that Raila is working out is to make sure he will be the candidate in 2027. Therefore, when he muzzles the communities, he muzzles the strongholds together, it will be very hard now for Kalonzo now again to come up and say that he will be the one who lead the troop.
Yes.
That will be running against His Excellency the President William Ruto. Therefore, is a wisdom I think he's working on, because he had not foreseen losing 2022. Therefore, he must plan now how he will be relevant between 2022 and 2027, and also become the main candidate for 2027 elections. Yeah.
All right. Mheshimiwa Abdul, what's your take on that?
I think, thank you once again. Pleased to be on the show again.
Karibu.
I think the game plan is very clear. One, looks like Honorable Raila wants to copy the script that was followed by His Excellency President Ruto in the last election. His Excellency President Ruto started campaigning for his, candidature very early in time, and that worked. And therefore, I think Raila is of the view that since that script worked, and the circumstances under which President Ruto popularized his campaigns look like are similar in terms of the context we are in today. Economic hardships, people frustrated because of joblessness and a lot of other difficulties. So perhaps in his game plan is thinking of capitalizing on these difficulties we have now as Kenyans and ratchet his agenda and make it difficult for the government that he doesn't recognize to govern. And therefore, His Excellency Honorable Raila has started his campaigns right now. Like you have rightly put it, he has had 10 rallies.
Yes, in 7 counties.
In 7 counties, and the message has been, similar throughout. You don't recognize this government. This government must, give up power. But let me tell you, the difficulties are there. Perhaps the game plan might succeed in a way in inciting Kenyans because of the difficult times we are in. But as they say, lightning never strikes same place twice.
Yes.
And that game plan, if the plan is to copy the script that Ruto had in the last election, it might not work perhaps for him going forward, because Kenyans have gone through that experience, and perhaps they also have an experience of what the outcome is, and they may not want to go, that populist path once again. But the game plan is to popularize his base, to focus on 2032, and to make it difficult to govern for the Kenya Kwanza government.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Arnold, when you look at how Raila has started his campaign immediately after election, it was like a month of some sort of break, even to the members of parliament. It was a month of break. People went for Christmas, and immediately after that, it was all systems go. Now, even Azimio MP said that they don't know Raila's game plan. A number of them are now visiting State House. At the end of the day, chances are it's only Raila who knows where he's headed. Your take on that?
I do not think that even Raila knows what he's doing. Generally, and with the benefit of hindsight, they say hindsight is 2020. If you look at how they've done in the past, I doubt he has got anything figured out. From how I see this is that first of all, this is an ambush recovery. The guys in the military will tell you that once you are in an ambush, there are only 2 ways. You disembark and fight back. You do not spare ammunition. And sometimes the only way you can survive is to outfire your enemy, because it's so difficult. You know, like Mheshimiwa has said, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga did not expect to lose in 2017 because he had everything working for him. In fact, in 2022, that is not an election William Ruto won. It's an election Raila lost. It's just that easy, as in he had everything working for him. So the former Prime Minister, I think, is into a loss management process, because everything is working so fast around him. He loses to William Ruto narrowly, yes, but then of course if you look at Parliament, of course William has got a majority. So even if Raila had won the presidential election, how would he have governed, for example? Because it becomes a little bit difficult and tricky at that. The Kenya Kwanza supporters in Parliament are quite idealistic about belonging to Kenya Kwanza. So it's not like people who just won. They believe in the hustler narrative, and movement is quite strong. So whatever Raila is trying to do has nothing to do with 2027. Largely at the moment, like I said, it's an ambush recovery. It's a loss management strategy for him to ensure that he doesn't just lose the presidency, and then he's also losing members of parliament and his foot soldiers. Remember that after the election, there were agitation of people going to the street. Never forget that. Yes. There are a lot of times we saw even tweets from verified communication on social media, including statements put out there, let us gather, let us try and do this. But the people were way past that. So he's trying to find his true north, because there is a way Raila will do things. So from where he is, I do not think that he has got the strategy figured out. But you know, business people say that entrepreneurship is a factor of production. If you bring it down lower, it's a cohasol. You just be out there and probably something will hold. So whatever he's doing, I think he doesn't know how to deal with this thing called William Ruto and Kenya Kwanza. It's still a very slippery eel, but he's hoping that something will stick. So as he goes out there, you know when he says that wewe hautujui, you need to go and ask President Moi and the others. He's hoping that among his basket of tricks that he's done over the years, one of these things is going to work with William. But then William Ruto is then a student of Moi, he's a student of Raila Odinga, he's a student of Uhuru Kenyatta. So for me, I do not think that there is anything that is figured out. You can see his members of parliament walking away. Because, you know, those are leaders. Yes. I always tell people that it's easy to actually look down on elected leaders until you try to run even for the chairman of a cattle dip. In this country, running for election,
their voices
even the one that looks like doesn't know what he's doing. He has got some strength and some abilities that an ordinary person, however educated you are, you might not actually be able to match up to it. So even those leaders, by the time you see them trying to walk and move into other spaces, they probably have already figured out and realized that there is probably not so much ground to hold on here.
Even Senator Cherargei says that Raila's eyes on 2027. Being a politician, probably somebody who say that he's also at the age of Biden, and Biden is 81, the United States. You know, as you speak. So let's wait and see how it goes. On the front page of the Standard newspaper, Ruto takes on World Bank, IMF over loans. Ruto takes on World Bank and IMF over loans. Now the president asks lenders to lower rates of borrowing in line with climate change initiatives, since the current setup favors the West, who are the worst polluters, and punishes African countries that are climate change conscious. Of course, he was speaking in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Government supplies neck deep in poverty. Contractors who do business with both the national and county government face uncertain times as officials delay or refuse to pay bills owed to them. A very big problem there in the county government. And of course, we still have got, on the front page, we have got photo there of Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka with the Wiper leaders. Yesterday, he said that the government has been using different government machineries to lure or to woo Wiper legislators into the Kenya Kwanza. Will that work? And finally, on the Daily Nation, big class divide in junior high. Big class divide in junior high. The pioneering CBC class has joined junior secondary school in grade 7. And now the big class divide in junior high. There's an issue of shortage of teachers. There's congestion, facilities, that is inadequate facilities and training. of teachers, and of course schools lament that most of the newly posted graduate teachers lack skills to teach the competence-based curriculum. Of course, there was that presidential working committee that was mandated to get the views from Wananchi, and here we are, still on the front page of the Daily Nation. Rebel MPs to form anti-Raila liberation group, quote-unquote liberation group. Rebel MPs to form anti-Raila liberation group. Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leader Raila Odinga is facing a fresh rebellion in his Nyanza backyard as alleged rebel legislators mull for the formation of a liberation group, quote-unquote a liberation group, to cut him down to size with the help of President William Ruto's administration. The name has reportedly been coined to symbolize plans to liberate the region from the grip of Odingas. Let me take a break at that point. We'll be back with more and get to the discussion after this. See you shortly. All right, welcome back. Okay, so there are two newspapers here. The Star newspaper and the Daily Nation. They have almost a similar story here. Raila's confounding political game plan, and the Nation has it that ODM rebels to form anti-Raila group. Let me start with you, Honorable Irungu. At the end of the day, we have got two headlines and stories almost the same. What do you make of this? ODM rebels to form anti-Raila group. Let me start with that.
One thing I think to allude is that the leaders from Nyanza, I think somehow now they are becoming tired. They feel now they need to bring up a new breed of leadership, especially a young leader. And Raila has stuck in that position. And that's why you could see in his rallies there are critical people who are missing. One thing, as we are saying, as our analyst has put it, is that even Raila himself cannot give clearly what is his plan, a game plan, whereby he can give a sequence of plans where he wants to get to. Therefore, he has not explained what he's doing even to his people. But one thing, after having Raila in control of Nyanza or that region for that long, I think some leaders are now feeling they need to create their own way. And that's why you see some leaders are ready to risk their political life, especially those who are working together with the government. Mostly, I know they are working for the government mostly to see how their people can also benefit, but also they want that freedom. The control Raila has had also has taken too long. And if I was Raila, this is the best time to come up with a new leader, a young leader from his region, or if not from his region, from his party, that he can nurture to face Ruto maybe in 2027 or 2032. But if he continues to remain the leader, that is he wants the leaders to take control of the party and also to be the presidential candidate in 2027. The fatigue now, I think, is developing with leaders from that region. And that's why I think they want to create their own path, which I know is a very hard thing they are trying to work out. It will not be easy. It will not be easy with Raila, whom we know, the way the locals just trust in him. But I think it starts with people who are confident, maybe to liberate their people, because chances for Raila to run against Ruto and win in 2027, they are very minimal.
They are very minimal.
They are very minimal.
And when you look at, it is not the first time such groups are being formed. It's not the first time people are going against Raila. Raila has got following across the country. When you go to Mombasa, Northeastern, he has support from across the country. But his backyard, Nyanza region, we've seen people forming groups even in the past to oust him as the kingpin, quote unquote, of Luo Nyanza. Will this work this time around?
I think forming groups against Raila so that he can relinquish his kingship is a strategy that always ends up in water, for the simple reason that Raila was not made by anyone to become a kingpin of that particular region. If we would look at history, and history is very, very important, is that he fought his way up. There were even being Jaramogi's son did not favor Raila, because at the time Jaramogi died, Raila was just one of those people in Ford Kenya at that particular time. Orengo actually looked much better than him. The Anyang' Nyong'os of this world were actually the stars of this particular country.
Yes.
And it took Raila fighting hard.
And do you know at some point they lost their seats?
Yes.
Right.
He fought long and hard to actually ascend to that particular position. So, if the quote-unquote liberation movement in Nyanza is going to be fashioned around the person of Raila, then it is wrong, because from where we are, there's what I love to call the demographic imperative, that today you then realize that there is a generational handover.
Yes.
It's happening whether you like it or not. It's a generational handover. It's a demographic imperative that a newer generation of people, because naturally the conveyor belt that is life has got attrition at the tail end of it, that people check out. Mwai Kibaki is now gone. Those were the stars of the politics that have been there. Raila is also at that particular end. You can actually bring in the Biden aspect, yes, but still, who are the majority voters? Today, the biggest voting bloc are actually what you would call the millennials. But behind the millennials, there is another young generation. That particular generation of what you call the Generation Zers are also fast getting into the age of majority. So targeting it as an anti-Raila campaign is wrong. If they actually try to look at it from a generational handover, it will work easily. But then there are some obvious questions that you need to look at. Number one is that when you see what is happening initially, that will not happen easily.
Yes.
It is because Baba's invincibility is now being questioned. Why is Baba's invincibility? Because Kitambo, they would just say, Baba knows best. If Baba tells us to go west, we ask him, how far west can we go? If Baba says we are going to the east, we will ask him, how far east can we go? But if Baba is always right, Baba knows best. They've realized that in 2022, even when they had the state, and Baba knew it well, they still lost. So people are now questioning his invincibility. They are asking and questioning his position. And that is the good position. Where especially young people in that particular region need to start asking, not to make this campaign about Raila, but simply to be about a society or a community that is moving forward. What is their stake in the future? What is their stake in tomorrow? But if they make it a Raila debate, Raila remains relevant today, by the way. Victor, let me just surprise you. He remains relevant because there is a generation of young people in this country. And when I talk about young people, are people in their 50s and 40s and 30s who have refused to stand up in that particular position. He is filling a void that exists in nature, abhors a vacuum. So he is only relevant because a generation of younger people have refused to stand up. Because why else would we be calling out a 77-year-old man that he is not actually doing his work, that he is not defending us much better? When he started doing these things, he even ran for president for the first time in his 40s. So there is a generation that has refused to stand up, and that is why he remains relevant. So all this particular drama around it should be fashioned about people standing up to do work. That particular work will ensure that he just faces out.
Okay. You know the history of Kangema. You remember the Kangema constituency. When you talk of Kangema, do you feel the heat of feeling, being in that shoe of the people who, came before you?
There's the heat of feeling the shoe of Meshuki.
How does it feel being in that position, members of parliament, when you go back on that board and you see he was here, and now you're here?
Thank you. One thing is that you try to watch his roots. You try to fit in how he used to do things.
Yes.
And somehow it becomes a bit difficult. But also we have to try the best we can to be fair to say, even if you cannot make it, you have to try to work out. Like Michuki had a lot of impact nationally and also on the ground. Therefore, mostly the most important thing is first of all to try to fit him on the ground. As you try now to show visibility he had in the national politics. But one thing I want to say is that people are ready to accept some of us as young leaders. They are ready also to build us. As you can see how Keharu have done. They are nurturing a leader who can now fit to the status of Madiba. And also for us, the most important thing is to work with our people and also to be very closely associated with them and walk the talk of the national politics, that you may not be invisible in the national politics. That's where also we are trying to fit. And also, as we fit, also we are trying not to step on those who are ahead of us.
Right.
Because also some of our leaders have lost their positions because they have been seen like after there are leaders who came around 2007. They tried to outshine Michuki, and most of them lost. Even Peter Kenneth lost on that era. We had Bao, we had Kamaina. Most of the leaders from Muranga lost me.
And talk about Kangema and Muranga, we have got big names from
they
that
tried
region.
to outshine Michuki.
Yes.
Therefore, we work as we try also to fit on his status. We are very careful. We are very careful also to watch on the leaders who are ahead of us. Even though they might be young like Dede, we are also trying to work together with them so that we may not step on them, because also the experience is also better than we are.
Kore, the reason why I've asked him that question, when you hear the names of Michuki of this world, you at some point step back and go back and get that book that they used to read, the book, the instructions, and the, what kind of road they use to govern. And now it's not about Kangema, it's national. When you go to Siaya, you'll hear Michuki rule still reigns today. All right? Now, when you hear that and now you see such kind of rebels being formed against Raila Odinga, will it really work? Because according to Madiba, he fought his way up. And forming a group, sometimes with 5 years to go, might take a very long time for you to convince people that we are the alternative group against Raila Odinga, who has been there since 1960s and 70s.
Yeah, I think I agree with my colleague, my friend Madiba, that it will be an uphill task for the rebel MPs to at least make an impact in the direction they are taking as far as Raila is concerned. One, I think, again, I can see some kind of people trying to read some kind of scripts. You see, when the MPs from Central Kenya rebelled against Uhuru in his last term, hoping that he will not have any influence anymore on them because he's going out anyway. I think that's the mindset some of these rebel MPs are having, that Raila might not contest again.
Uhuru Kenyatta was exiting the stage.
Exactly. They also think Raila is exited because of the age and the many years he has tried.
Yes.
And they think perhaps somebody like Alonso or Karua will not allow him to run again when they are still there. They will do what the Mudavadis and the Wetangulas did in the last election. So the other thing, I think, why it is not why we are in the situation we are in, and there is this question of rebels against Raila, is the fact that you see, we also have a new crop of young leaders in 13th Parliament. People who have realized actually the constituents, the people who elected them, have a much more say on their future politically than anybody else. And that's why you'll see Jalango coming out and saying, if I don't attend Raila's rally and I take water to the people of Langata, they will not mind so much about why I did not go to Raila's rally, so long as I've gotten water from the CS water and brought the water to them. So that kind of discourse where and the context which is changing, where the MPs have learned. Actually, by the way, the current parliament is I think the first parliament where members who are seated in the 12th parliament, almost 50%, more than 50% came back.
Yes.
And when you ask them why they came back, is they're telling you is that they connected more with their constituents. The other problem I'm seeing in the whole thing is the void we have created in the 2010 constitution, where a person who's the second best candidate in our presidential election does not have a room in participating in the governance of this country. Yeah. That is why we are trying to create to cure that through the constitutional amendment we are looking at now, creating the office. Yeah, he's saying no to, but we're not doing it for Raila. We're doing it for posterity. We've realized there's a lacuna
but
there.
Even for posterity, Mheshimiwa, before you continue with the discussion, how possible is that? I mean, even in future, when you have an office of the opposition, what would be the net effect in the political landscape?
You see, right now, the opposition has a person called the leader of the minority in the House.
Yes.
this is somebody who's elected from a single constituency. But there is somebody here, Raila, who's got 6 million votes from all over the country, and he cannot be in the house to rally his troops. You know, become an effective opposition in the house. I think the net effect is that there will be somebody who has got a more national appeal, who will be leading the opposition. It is good for our democracy. It is good for the opposition in the country.
Okay, Madiba, even as you respond, what if Raila has a game plan known to him? Because in law they call him Agwambo. Agwambo is something quite mysterious. You just see it happens. How it happened, it's like lightning. All of a sudden it comes, it appears, and it's gone. What if that game plan is known to him and then later on it surfaces?
If Raila has got a game plan, in my opinion, that will actually probably shake the ground and shift the or rather where we are going as a country, then it would be that he's riling the base, calling his troops to parade, and then going across the country to ensure that all his troops are actually, like I said, to parade, and then he hands over to somebody else, for example, Kalonzo. But I have got a different opinion on what Mheshimiwa says, that if somebody who's gotten votes across the country, then is the leader of opposition in the House, probably then it's different. Me thinks that a lot of times we really misconstrue that. Raila became a very effective leader of opposition after in the post-202 setting, when he wasn't, he was not on the ballot for anything except for Member of Parliament in what was Langata then. So this is about leadership, because we have got an example of a man who was number 2 in the elections, was expected to be a very effective leader of opposition, but he joined government. That person was Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru Kenyatta joined Mwai Kibaki after 2007, and he went down and dissipated, even though he found his ways of coming back under very different conditions. But then the oversight that is supposed to be offered by a leader just because he had votes coming with him, Uhuru Kenyatta wasn't very effective as a leader of opposition, by the way. Yet he had people who voted for him. So you can still have somebody who has been, who's actually voted for, and doesn't provide the leadership that is expected in for a leader of official opposition. What we have a problem is that we have got parties. You know, our parties are still personality cults. We've really not institutionalized politics. I am hoping that probably UDA would actually properly become a political party where you can institutionalize politics. But then you see somebody who's given the lead of minority in the House, sometimes might not be as appealing, not that particular person who the members of parliament sat down and elected that particular person amongst themselves, and they say so and so will be our leader. You know, there is always to be has to be one person who is the first among others. So I still think that that particular void will not be solved. That problem will not be solved simply by bringing whoever has become, because as we do that, we have got a template that we are working with, and that template is Raila Odinga. If Raila Odinga is not there tomorrow, will things still work the way they were? Michuki, for example, just a moment, when Michuki was the Minister for Transport, he was very effective. So people thought, okay, if Michuki has worked well, Ali Chirao Makwere can come in and still work well. Then the guy shows up and he tells us after a month or two that I also have got a matatu, I cannot do those same things. So if we are going to make policies and laws with a template and a background, or rather a background being a personality in it, we will get it wrong. What happens if then the next person is different and just wants to join government and make merry, for example? That
could be maybe some people's. Mheshimiwa Kora, I can see you shaking your head, but Mheshimiwa, give me a picture. 2 months to election, 2027. With Raila in the picture. Fast forward 5 years from now.
5 years.
2 months to an election. We know how political landscape in Kenya can shift within an hour. Things can change. But with the political landscape as it is right now, with President William Ruto, you know, commanding a majority now in Parliament, and things still moving pretty fast. 2 months to an election, 2027.
2 months to the election. One thing we must understand is that William Ruto is not an easy person to go in a political arena. And I know for now he's cool because he's trying to bring up the country, to set the economy, and he cannot be, he is not ready to be drawn to the politics that Raila is doing. But as we get to 2027, I know Ruto will have planned his campaign for his re-election. And one thing we must understand is that I'm not looking at it again as Kalonzo will be ready also to risk now behind Raila. I know he might try to come up with his own way of coming up as the person, the presidential candidate for Azimio or whatever will be there then. One thing I think is that it will not be as easy as they may think, because I know the current president will have muscled a lot of people around him. Most of the people from Central Kenya, I wish, and I'm looking forward that he will maintain the support from Central Kenya. And the other area that can be an advantage for Azimio, if there will be the people from Central Kenya will start now outshining each other to take up the position of deputy president. But if they stick with one person, if they stick behind Gachagua, and there is no division between the leadership in Central Kenya, the bloc for Central Kenya will be rallied again towards William Ruto. And also the politics of 2027 will carry now who will be the successor for Ruto.
Yes.
Therefore, it will have a lot to talk about who will Ruto support in 2032 after the election. Therefore, those are some scenarios that I'm trying to look at. But one thing we must agree is that Ruto will work out anything he can do to make sure he's re-elected. Raila, at that time, I don't know whether he will be tired, because driving a campaign, whatever he's doing, to sustain it for 5 years is very cumbersome, tiresome. It will wear him out.
Somebody said that Raila will wear out if he doesn't go to a campaign trail. If he doesn't campaign, now that's what weighs him down. He needs to be there.
Politically, Raila will wear out if he's not doing anything.
Yes. Exactly.
But then we see how he struggled in the campaigns in 2022. He couldn't catch up with the pace that William Ruto had actually set. You know, campaigns are draining. Let no one lie to you. Anyone who's actually been on a campaign trail,
here will tell you how crazy it can get.
You can wake up in the morning and feel like, no, I just don't want to go. Everything is there. Not that you have got anything that is less. You've got the transport, you've got the resources, you've got a message and everything else, but it's not still easy. Anyway, be that as it may, I just needed to say this. That Azimio is not that particular vehicle that will remove William Ruto. Azimio is not the future that actually, Azimio is not in the future of this country. It's not. That is not.
Most definitely something will happen along the way.
And the person who then replaces William Ruto has to come from behind him. So, whatever happens, William Ruto's successor is not in Azimio, cannot be in the vehicle that is Azimio. Azimio can only just be the John the Baptist of this particular process, making the way. But from where I sit and how I look at it, you know, if you're going to understand our politics at the moment, it's like trying to understand the business model in Isli.
Yes.
You need a PhD in chaos theory. As in, from how it looks like, it's impossible to actually see Raila Odinga being the replacement for William Ruto. Ever since the dynamic duo that is William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta happened in 2013, it's going to take a little bit of time for an older person than the sitting president to take after him.
Okay. Wishmua, you were shaking your head as Madiba was speaking.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're shaking your heads about, but then
I really don't want to go back to that debate, because he was concentrating on the numbers.
It's an open forum.
I wasn't looking at the numbers. I'm not saying because Raila has 6 million votes, that's why he will. No, it's about the office, the office of the leader of the opposition in the House, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Raila.
Yeah.
Now it is Raila because we are talking about him having been the second best candidate in the last election. So that one I don't want to dwell very much on it. But on your other question as to whether 2 months to the elections with Raila keeping the pace, is keeping what happens. I think I agree with my friend again that Azimio most probably is not going to be the vehicle to remove and if the game plan for Raila is countering the hustler narrative,
right,
and demolishing it, then I think the hustler might be a little bit disoriented now because of the economic situation. But 2 months to the elections, I can assure you that hustler will be a very happy hustler in the Kenya Kwanza government. A lot of things would have changed, the economy would have improved, and the hustler would be a happy person to vote William Ruto again.
Yes. Yeah. What do you think President William Ruto will have to do again 2 months to an election that is going to change the entire landscape? Because Raila is now doing to undo what happened, because he was given that band of this serikali of him and President Uhuru Kenyatta. They spoiled the government, all manner of things happened. So what is he going to do to undo that tag?
I think the moment William Ruto succeeds in the legislative agenda he has now for the country, the policies and the plans he has, housing, UHC, and creating jobs and improving the economy. The moment all those policies succeed in the span of the 5 years, the William Ruto we know, the vibrant politician in him we know, the active politician in him we know, and the age is also with him. He's a very brilliant politician. Definitely, he's now concentrating on improving the economy and making sure all the policies that his government had in its agenda promised to the Kenyans are done according to the way it is supposed to be done. So 2 months to the elections, William Ruto just has to make sure he reflects Kenyans back on the promises he made to them, and show them how he has fulfilled those promises to Kenyans, and he will be riding very smoothly.
Before we take a break, do you think the pressure is on President?
Yeah.
The pressure was on him right now?
The pressure?
Yes, 10 rallies in 7 counties.
Yeah. No, you can't ignore. Like even me, I can't ignore when I hear the person who was next to me in Kangema is walking around there doing rallies, doing meetings. You can't ignore. You can't ignore because...
What would you do? Will you call him like, Mheshimiwa Kore, just come?
Now, that's why now the Ruto plan is that he don't want to walk the Uhuru way, the Uhuru route whereby Uhuru called Raila and they settled together. The Ruto want to destabilize Raila by calling his troops, and he's appealing to the troops, because I think the politics of Kenya has been mostly the Kikuyism also has been made the people from Nyanza and those areas to be extremely resistant. But whenever the Ruto seems a bit friendly to them, they feel comfortable working with him. And that's how maybe he's working out. What Ruto will do is to destabilize Raila by working with his troops and making his roots a bit weak. But the chances of Ruto calling Raila to settle their ground is almost zero.
Okay.
It's almost zero here.
I will ask you this question, Arnold, but answer me after this break. He's called Raila's troops to his bracket. Will he sustain for the next 5 years? Because as politicians, they know themselves, they know how they operate, they know the book. I think you people have your own constitution, what you do, something that we don't know. You have your own constitution, perhaps you'll share with us. But will the president maintain those guys for the next 5 years? If he doesn't, what will be the end game again for the president? Let's take a break. We'll be back with more. I also want to talk about the issue of the North. Mheshimiwa, your neighbors are suffering, and we have got the Jeshi on the other side. We'll talk much more about that. And as well, the tea in Kangema.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
More when you come back after this break. Stick around. All right, welcome back to the final stretch now of this discussion. Let's now flip pages and talk about something different. The banditry that has affected the country for quite a number of years now is something that is close to the president's heart. And a couple of days ago, the Kenya Defense Forces were sent to the volatile region, the 6 counties there, to battle the rebels. But even as we speak, a number of people have been killed, and bandits are still raiding different counties in those particular areas. So let me just ask the members of parliament here, the Minister or the CS responsible for Interior, that is Kithure Kindiki, gave that order the president gave that order that the armed forces to be there, but of course they're just going to act as a backup to that particular region. Let me start with you, Mheshimiwa Kore. Now that they are your neighbors, perhaps you must be feeling the heat of people crossing from one county to another.
First of all, let me tell you, if you know the geography of Kenya very well, the people in the northwestern part of the country, that is Turkana, Pokot, Samburu, they are much more closer to 3 international countries, Ethiopia, Sudan, Uganda.
Yes.
And definitely, just like they normally cross when they are looking for pasture and water, under these circumstances, lots of people will run away from the operation area and cross to Uganda, cross to South Sudan, or cross to Ethiopia. And some will also cross to different counties in Marsabit and Isiolo as they run away from the military. And let me tell you, this military operation we are seeing now is timely and most welcome. We have seen bandits become, emboldened. Before the president ordered the military to go there, what happened? You see bandits coming in their numbers on the main highway, shooting passenger vehicles, killing students going back to school. And there was no way the government will sit and watch that happens, And therefore the military operation, first of all, is timely and it is most welcome. And these people called bandits, actually, I agree with Kindiki Kithure that they are not bandits anymore.
Yeah.
They should be called for what they are. They are terrorists because they are terrorizing the innocent people in that region. They are terrorizing people traveling those roads, and they are terrorizing, they are burning schools, they are burning villages, they are stealing stocks. And therefore those ones, we call them terrorists because they're using unlawful violence and they're intimidating the whole population in that area. And if we have a government, which we have, and government existing for what it does, then it has to deal with this problem now decisively, now once and for all. And I don't think there will come a president, I'm not sure there will come a president who has got that golden opportunity to end this problem today, like President William Ruto. He comes from the region, he's got pastoralist links, he's a pastoralist himself, and he understands this politics around the northwestern and the conflicts of pastoralists in that region very well. If we don't do that, an industry called livestock industry is almost being brought to its knees. And what does the livestock industry does for Kenyans? The livestock industry, I know many Kenyans will not understand this because they don't give it a lot of attention. The livestock industry gives us 13% of our GDP.
That's a huge number.
It's a huge number. And it gives us 50% of agriculture labor force. And believe you me, a fifth of Kenya's population, 10 million people, live in the Asal counties where we rear this livestock. So if we leave these bandits, cause havoc the way they have caused havoc for many years, what they are doing, they are affecting our economy, they are affecting the education sector, they are affecting the transport sector, they are affecting the business, especially now that we are having lots of economic difficulties and people are trying to make use of the little they have to make a living, and they are making it very difficult for our people. There is very serious drought, a drought that has spanned from 2020 to date, and drought is already terrorizing these people. And then these bandits appear and they use,
Arnold, when you look at, we're in 2023.
Yeah.
The rest of Kenya is peaceful. People are going to school. It's then let's just cut the 6 counties to a different region. The rest of the country is moving forward in terms of development. People are talking about taxes. People are talking about kids going to school and jobs and what have you. But at this particular time of the year, we are still talking about bandits raiding counties, raiding homes. And when they do away with the 2,000 heads of cattle, these animals never get found.
When we are looking at banditry, it doesn't matter whatever year we are in. This thing speaks to very basic stuff that we don't want to address. That is livelihood. I wanted to call it the economy, but the economy has got a lot of cores and a lot of states. So it can get very complicated when you start doing that, and then it looks like it's a lot of English. It's about livelihoods. People are simply trying to eke out a livelihood the best way they can, and how they can actually survive in that particular environment they are in. If we are going to take care of this particular issue, it's about redesigning the economy. William Ruto, by the way, from where I see it, might not be able to effectively fight banditry, because for the unlike he thinks that because he comes from that particular area and he is a pastoralist himself, he might actually be the best person to do it. The best person to deal with banditry will have to be somebody who does not come from that particular area. The way Kenyatta, not being a northerner, was able to effectively deal with the shifters. It wasn't an easy fight. It's taken so long. But you see, the policies that were put in place, it had to take somebody who is far removed from it. He might not have dealt with it effectively. That is why I do not think that for a long time, by the way, I work in Somalia, so I could actually have a word or two when it comes to employing kinetics, the military bit of it. In the north of Somalia, soft power is working now, where the people are joining SNA, that's the Somali National Army, to effectively beat Al-Shabaab. And Al-Shabaab is actually on the retreat from the north going south. Probably in the next 90 days or about 120 days or so, we could have a firefight in the south, because now Al-Shabaab doesn't have a house to stay in the north. It's taken years to build a soft power strategy that brings people on the side of reading from one end. Here, and Mheshimiwa correctly gets it, we no longer need to call these guys bandits. That is terrorism. I asked somewhere where a number of members of parliament were, why we've never considered using the terrorist laws, the laws against the laws.
We should use it.
Actually,
in fighting
a couple
this,
of legislators have been calling that this.
And then, of course, people had a lot of legalese on what applying those laws here would be. But if you look at the laws against, or rather the laws on prevention of terrorism, banditry fits within the definition of that particular thing. You do not need to lift anything.
But why is it now
for political reasons, that's why you get it. But for political reasons, we do not want to go this side. So, deploying the military is short term. Kinetics can never be the long-term solution to such like an issue. We have got the Lemi Triangle. He spoke about it. The Uganda on the other side, there's Sudan, there's Ethiopia, and then there's Somalia on the other end. The politics around that particular end, there are a few things people might not be willing to say. You know, Kenya for the last 50 years has had a silent policy, and no one, including them, will accept this, has had a silent policy of arming Turkanas. That is a silent policy, so that it's the first bulwark against any invasion, because we've had threats in that particular area. If you are a person who understands, the same way, people wouldn't want to say it loudly, and even the state wouldn't want to say it, but strategically, the people who are in charge of national security have a way of ensuring that the borders that we have got a problem with are armed in a way. People will say it is the dynamics. Probably there is the incursion, left, right, and center from the other side. But that is a silent policy. There is somehow we've allowed that to work. Why do I say that? Look at the Sabaot Land Defense Forces.
It was crushed.
Totally.
Right.
Everywhere. Sometimes when Busia was misbehaving, where the state does not want arms to exist, the state gets away with it.
And perhaps that is why we have got police reserves in such regions, but not arming them.
No, let me tell you, see, if Kisumu would be one bad place. It's a border county. But because you cannot trust an armed Kisumu, you wouldn't get to go somewhere. So let me just finalize by saying this, that it's going to take a bit of time, and I am hoping that the people who are designing the intervention into this thing would actually look at the long term and not just short term. Because there's another challenge here. The area in which the bandits operate is actually half the size of Uganda. So even if you took 1,000 men there, 2,000 military men there, it will not be effective. And then just tell me...
That is, Madiba, that is heartbreaking.
I'm just saying, in the long run...
That is heartbreaking. Before you come in,
Mheshimiwa really wants to say this because he comes from that particular area. But if you've worked in a conflict area, you realize one thing, that sometimes we have to be realistic. Talk about short term, mid term, and long term.
Okay, Mheshimiwa.
I think, first of all, let me say, it's an insult to the people of Northeastern to say what Kenyatta did during the Shifta era was a success. Killing people, poisoning wells so that livestock die, and creating the poverty that we see today in Northeastern, calling it a success. That's an insult to the people of Northeastern. Secondly, it is the shoe wearer who knows where the shoe pinches. So, for a long time, the war on terrorism, particularly in Eastleigh and in many Somali regions, did not work because the government was not even able to get proper intelligence until they recruited Somali intelligence officers who could give them a real whatever. So I still maintain His Excellency President William Ruto, knowing the context very well, coming from that region and being a pastoralist himself, stands the best chance to deal with this problem once and for all. Now, these bandits, they don't know any other God. The only God they understand is more firepower than the power they have. And that is why the military needs to go in very heavy-handedly on the of course, some collateral damage will happen on innocent people, innocent civilians, innocent villagers. But that's the only way to deal with these bandits. I am one person who suffered the problem of insecurity from where I come from. My constituency borders Somalia. Yeah. And we have a lot of insecurity issues time and again. People coming, placing IDs on our roads, people coming and, shooting vehicles that move. So we know the cost of insecurity and what it has done to our people and the development of our region. Right now, we don't have teachers in Northeastern. We don't have medics in Northeastern because these buggers who are causing insecurity in our region have made it impossible for Kenyans from other parts of the country to come and work in that region. And therefore, when I talk about this, I talk from a very passionate point that something must be done because those people in northwestern Kenya are really suffering underdevelopment for many years. We've always said we are marginalized. And this marginalization all the time revolves around insecurity. Okay. And this insecurity is within us.
That bill did not pass through Parliament. It was a direct direction from the President, and which was effected by the Minister Interior. And now we have got the military. Do you think it's going to work out this time around?
One thing is we are saying that the military presence might be short-term, but now we need a long-term solution for those areas. And as he's putting it, we had Mount Elgon, about
defense
land
forces
by Matakwe.
Yeah,
yes.
Which were led by Matakwe. The first person they dealt with was Matakwe. They dealt with leadership. We had Mongeke in central Kenya, which was growing very much and was very powerful. Michuki dealt with the leadership of Mongeke, and people started disappearing. And he said it. It was very painful to most of our parents, and people complained a lot, but that's how they dealt with Mongeke. And now,
Kangema peaceful now, Mheshimiwa?
No, it's peaceful. Mongeke ilisha kabisa. Right. Yeah, even in central Kenya. Now, what we want to say, hata kama they are small cells, they are just hiding. Now, when we get to northeastern, on the areas allowed Pokot,
yes.
South, wherever.
That's northwestern.
Northwestern.
They must first of all deal with the leadership, because these things of banditry is able to strive because some of the leaders in those areas embrace them. And I think, and most of the people who have maintained in leadership is because they use it as a tool to make their people feel in their absence they will not be able to have the peace, they will not feel protected. Therefore, I think also we must still work out on leaders who are entrenched in it, and they are known. They are known completely. If we shy off trying to hide behind the scene that we don't want to be seen, we are fighting, we just want to embrace them, this thing will never end until we manage and deal with the leadership.
Yes.
Sabaot, when it was dealt with Matakwe and his team, iliisha na ikaisha kabisa. In northeast, in the Pokot areas, those areas around Turkana, wherever, those leaders must be dealt with decisively.
Mheshimiwa, you'll agree with me that members, some of your colleagues who sit in the legislative assemblies have been summoned by the DCI over and over and over again. Right now, on the front page of the Star newspaper, is still also written there that MP Kosing's chopper grounded as police probe links to banditry. That is just but a story. And of course, he was arrested, was it last week, and he was taken to DCI. You know, he was summoned and all that. But still, we've seen members of parliament, not local wananchi, not common wananchi you'll meet on the streets. They're people who are able. How are you going to deal with such kind of elements? Because at the end of the day, you know, when you want to kill a snake, you start hit the head, as you correctly put it.
Hit the head, yeah.
Go ahead, in 1 minute.
In 1 minute, what I want to say is that, as Mheshimiwa is saying that the current president is the best person to deal with the banditry in that area, now he has to be ready to risk his political life to deal with these leaders who will be found that they are part of the team that is working mostly in supply of arms. These arms are bought, they are expensive. The locals cannot be able to acquire them. There are leaders who are in the front line to purchase and acquire them, maybe from Uganda or from Ethiopia or wherever. Yeah. Therefore, unless the government now feels that they have to deal with these leaders, because some of us is that we might fear about our political future. But if you know this is a leader who is funding these atrocities that they're killing our children and our women, it's very painful. When you see a helpless child, when they are shot, they are killed while learning, it's very painful. Yeah. Therefore, nobody should have mercy on such a leader. That leader should be arrested, should be put in jail, and you should not compromise on this. But the biggest problem is whenever we try to balance politics and so on the issue of human beings. Because
at the end of the day, people are dying for the sake of politics. It can get crazy.
Just quickly, I'd like to actually set a record straight. I didn't say that what Kenyatta did was actually a success. But at that particular time, what would Nairobi define as a success in an operation? Now, quickly, Kenya is unable to fight the banditry problem in isolation of Uganda, Sudan, and Ethiopia. That we will not. It must be a multinational approach to this particular issue. Because the Karamajong in Uganda cause problem on that side and they cross on this other side and hide. Kenyans also do the same. And now that we have got an operation, I can tell you the lead bandits are not even in Kenya. They've already crossed over to the other side. They will seek refuge on that side and come on this particular end. Two, we have got a problem on terrain. Normally, the military guys will talk about the three T's: training, terrain, and tactics. So here, those local boys have got an advantage on terrain. So they know it much better than the people we are sending in. And a lot of times, we have not made service in the military or even the police about what you do for while you're on desk. So we are picking young people and sending them to people who have not seen battle any day. We are sending them on that particular end. Basic stuff like employing technology. And here, let's talk about what drones can do. I'm not talking about the drones that you've seen, the ones that we use for camera and you know, so that those pockets know one thing. Mtu ataambiwa kuwa ukitoka nje utapigwa na radi. So that anyone who's actually seen out proper drones, we are talking about drones that can actually do attacks, armed ones, not just for surveillance. And we know that means that we have to employ a little bit, that is for short term, to ensure that we can contain. First of all, bring in all the other countries. Number two, ensure that we employ technology so that we have got an advantage on terrain. These guys have got an advantage on terrain more than our boys do. And it's not like we are lesser trained or our soldiers are lesser trained. It's just that we have never had a priority. I'll tell you, on the day somebody attacks State House, you'll realize that we have got capacity to deal with anything. But so long as it doesn't touch the heart of Nairobi, it doesn't touch anything around Parliament, you just need to go and threaten Parliament and see what will happen. So
the moment it happens in your house, that you know.
Then while we do that, we should also have in place long-term strategies to ensure that then a newer generation of young people who come up can embrace different economies, that livelihoods can be redefined. But if the only way to go about this is about what they do today, it's not going to change. And then lastly, all politics is local. Banditry is just as political as politics come in, especially in that particular region. One area, one community feels like we cannot be the whipping boys. Sometimes it's just for local rivalry, and in the end, it actually spews out. Can we also reach out to a level where people can speak to each other honestly? so that then people do not feel the Turkanas are the blue-eyed boys of the north, and then the Pokots are the ones to be blamed for everything else. Then on the other side, the Tugents are being blamed, the Marakwets are suffering on that particular end. Can we then also have a realistic, can we address it politically? It also can be done.
All right, gentlemen, I need to get 5 minutes. I have 5 minutes to remain. But gentlemen, members of parliament, I will give you 5 minutes if you can. We are, in the new year.
Yeah.
Allow me to ask you this question. What have you achieved so far in your constituency? Let me start with you.
Yeah, starting with me. Thank you very much. First of all,
because that's what wananchi also want to hear from you.
Yes. We came in at a very difficult time, especially for my constituency. We had a 52% voter turnout because of the drought that was hitting the region that time. Until now, that drought is still hitting our people. Livestock have died. So what we have done is to work with other development actors, particularly those people in the civil society, international NGOs and what have you, that support humanitarian. We've managed to attract quite a number of them to the region to support those poor, vulnerable people, at least to survive those months until the rains come.
Yeah.
And the rains have been elusive, and every time we thought it will come the next month, it will come there, it's becoming prolonged. So the difficulties are still prolonging. So one is that. The other one is, I think we've done a lot of the work that has been sent, the reason why we have been sent to Parliament, that is, we're working on a lot of
What have you
legislative...
done specifically on health and water?
On health and water, you see, health is a devolved function of the county government. Water is a devolved function of the county government. We are working with the county government to prioritize areas that are really requiring the needs. They're also having problems with the money. You just talked about the money that the counties are receiving. We are working with the June budget that was with very little maneuver to change anything to be able to meet the emerging needs. But one other thing we have done is to make sure the parents from our constituencies who have children going to school are cushioned.
Yes. We
have paid bursary for all our students in Mandera. For example, working with the county government, secondary education in Mandera County is now free for the next 5 years.
Okay.
Nobody will pay fees.
At least now you're better than Dinijoro.
Exactly. And the other thing we have done is the other thing I've done, particularly because of the problem with teacher shortages I have in Mandera. Mandera right now, as we speak, has 58% teacher shortage. 58% teacher shortage.
That's a
you get it. And a county like Rinyaga has only 1% teacher shortage.
Okay.
You don't ask me the reasons why. But what we have done is to like in my constituency, I have put aside from the NGCDF kitty money for sponsoring 150 teacher trainees.
On that, let me just hand it over.
Yes.
About you, NGCDF.
Yeah.
Something close to your heart is tea in Kangema.
Yeah.
How many tons have you exported?
Okay, thank you very much. I think mostly, as you have put, that some of the things that we have already achieved during our time, in the short time that we have been in politics. One thing is that, first of all, let me look at the issue of water. I found that Kangema town didn't have water because of some of the infrastructure that were being done on the upper part, but now water is flowing. Therefore, Kangema town now has a 24/7 water supply. And also, I have worked on to do issue of health, though it's devolved. I used to follow up on Kangema Hospital as I try also to operationalize Kangema KMTC. And I think we start with the governor, and a lot is being done in Kangema Hospital.
Groundbreaking?
And I'm working also on groundbreaking because I've gotten lecturers from the county government, from the governor, and therefore we are planning in September, we'll have an intake in Kangema. And also we have worked with the government to see how we can facelift Kangema General Hospital. On issue to do with the tea, an issue to do with the tea is our role now as a member of parliament. And the issue of coffee has gotten some clear path as we worked with the task force. The task force that were working, there are some things that Munya did which were not right, whereby they have been reversed by the government, especially the regulations. And I think the issue of coffee is doing very well. The issue of to do with the tea is not extremely clear. But one thing is that the act that that came up in 2020 on reforms in tea, there are some areas that are very positive, whereby we are pushing the Tea Board of Kenya to see how they can be able to operationalize. First of all, the operationalization of Tea Board of Kenya is very critical, because now this is a parastatal that is looking on issues to do with tea. One area is that we have a handle, is that the act said that the managing agent should not charge anything more than 1.5%. Previously, they were charging 2.5%. Now, the other issue is that the Act said whenever the managing agent takes up the management of tea factory, its workers should be paid by the managing agent, which is extremely practical. But now they have been playing cat and mouse, whereby they take the managing agent, they are given the contract to manage tea factories, then they charge the tea factory to pay for their workers. Now I'm wondering why was the use of the 2.5% they were charging. Now, for now, the management agreement between tea factories and KTDA was supposed to be signed by 17th this month.
Okay.
They did not sign because they said that moving from 2.5 to 1.5 is too true. But I'm asking KTDA, when Doda came up with a law on interest rate, or Jomo, who came up with the law on interest rate, capping it to around 14%, the banks first of all complied with the law. After they complied with the law, then they started raising issues after they comply. KTDA should not state itself as an exceptional. Whether they are demanding that first of all we work out on the management figure, then they can comply. What I want to tell the Tea Board of Kenya should be take the responsibility to understand, if KTDA cannot be able to work with 1.5% as managing fee, they should look for other management agents. There are so many who are willing to work with the tea farmers, who can be able to work with 1.5%. Then they can raise issues whenever they are working on. Therefore, that's an area whereby I wish Tea Board of Kenya should be extremely take responsibility. They must understand their role is to, the KTDA is under them, and the Minister of Agriculture also should not focus too much working with the managing agent, KTDA. Should focus working with the Tea Board of Kenya, because that's the entity and government parastatal under the Minister of Agriculture that should be advising and working with the ministry to see how our farmers will be able to earn more.
My director is asking me, are kids going to school in Kangema?
Yeah, my kids are going to school in Kangema. I've dispersed bursary for Form 1s, and I am sponsoring a few needy students, 100%. I'm working now for releasing bursary for the Form 2, 3, and 4, which I do by this week. That's why I'm going there to see how we'll be able to do it. And also, there's this issue whereby the format that Dede Nyoro came up with. We are trying to study it. If it works, we'll still work with it also. Because we are trying to see how we can be able to use CDF. Okay. We can be able to use CDF money to be able to assist mostly our children to go to school.
Weshima, thank you so much. All right. Education is key for all of us. Of course, we are here because of education. And that's why I had to finish with education so that we see how kids can go to school. We have got so many needy students who've passed 400 marks and above, and they're not able to go to school. If you can reach out to them, please do so, because at the end of the day, that's the only equalizer why we are here. Thank you so much, gentlemen. We'll be speaking to Honorable Peter Irungu, Member of Parliament, Kangema constituency. I have got Honorable Abdul from Mandera South constituency, as well as Arnold Madiba, who is a policy analyst. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Asanteni sana. We've built Kenya the best way we could.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. Good morning. My name is Victor Oloo. Bye-bye.